Hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and today I want to talk about this Ford Explorer. Now, it's been just a little more than 3 weeks ago that I obtained this vehicle as a company car. So previously I was assigned to drive a Chevy Traverse 2016 model year and also a 2010 Honda Pilot. And both of those cars were kind of in rough shape when I got them. I just kind of guided them each to the end of their lifespan as a working vehicle. And so when all that was over, this is a brand new 2025 Ford Explorer. And so for the next foreseeable future, if someone from the company is driving this car, greater than 95% chance that'll be me driving the car at that time. So my perspective here that I really want to share with you as I start making a few simple videos about this car, I'm used to driving cars that are at least 9 years older than this as far as the model year is concerned. So if you're kind of in the same situation and in the near future maybe you're considering buying a brand new car with all the newest functions and features and gadgets built into it, this is the perspective I'm going to share. Some of the things that this Explorer has to offer that I'm not used to, and maybe I can kind of guide you into what to expect from a brand new car. So in the last 5 years, I think I've driven maybe one other new car, and that was a rental car. I was on a business trip and rented a car, probably drove it a total of maybe 20 or 30 miles on the whole trip, and that was a Nissan Rogue, and I didn't really get to know that car very well. And so after about 3 weeks, I'm getting to know this one, and the main thing I want to talk about in this video, although there are a lot of things about it that are new and somewhat exciting that I could tell you about, the thing I want to talk about the most right now is adaptive cruise control. Now, with the 2016 Traverse and with the 2010 Pilot, the cruise control was very similar to the cruise control in that Corolla over there. That's a 2011 Corolla, my personal car that I really like to drive, that car. And typically I do a lot of driving, especially for work. A lot of that is highway driving, and I like to use cruise control. But the cruise control I'm used to has certain limitations. For example, if I'm going on the highway and I've chosen my speed, and let's say it's 65 miles an hour, and I dial in the speed and I go and I'm just fine. But maybe when I hit an incline, the car starts going uphill, then maybe it has a difficult time maintaining the speed. Or in the case of the Corolla over there, it usually can maintain the speed, but it doesn't quite know what gear to choose. So it might downshift and then back in, and a little bit of a rough ride there as it's trying to select the gear as we're going uphill. So to make that situation better, I would disengage the cruise control and just use my foot to manipulate the accelerator pedal, and I would be fine in most situations in the Corolla. Also, when I may be going downhill, a steep grade, even though I've got, say, this cruise control set for 65 miles per hour, maybe it starts to just start coasting a little bit faster than that. The Corolla and those other two vehicles I mentioned did not seem to make any effort to slow me down. Only maintain the speed I had set even uphill, but as far as going downhill, if the weight of the car, the momentum, the gravity, the coasting allowed it to go faster than the cruise control setting, it would just do that. So again, for those two situations, I'd have to disengage the cruise control and either use the accelerator or the brake, or shift to a lower gear, or do something manually to stay within a reasonable speed in those situations. And the third thing that was kind of lacking with cruise control was maintaining a safe follow distance behind whatever vehicle was directly in front of me when those vehicles start going slower than the speed I've chosen in cruise control, right? So for example, Interstate 15 runs north and south through Utah, and so anywhere between, say, Ogden and Provo, it's a 70 mile an hour speed limit. And so a lot of people maybe go a little faster than that. I don't know. I tend to like to maintain the speed limit very closely, not much over, not much under either, because you know, it's my driver's license on the line if there happens to be a problem and I get pulled over for some reason, right? So I don't really have a reason to exceed the speed limit. There's just no reason to do it, especially with a company car. I just don't need that, okay? So, again, it's 70 miles an hour, the speed limit, and this is a major thoroughfare, so at certain times of the day in certain locations, very, very likely you're gonna run into heavy traffic, and when you do, you'll have to slow down. So, you know, it's a little bit of a bother. You know, I've dialed in the exact perfect speed setting on cruise control, and all of a sudden I just have to, you know, disengage until I run in an area that doesn't have as much traffic, or maybe I just, you know, I'm always tempted to like put it on a lower setting and engage the cruise control again, but inevitably if there's heavy traffic, it just doesn't work. So what does this Ford Explorer do to improve the way that cruise control works? Well, it has what they call adaptive cruise control. But I think adaptive cruise control only has something to do with the following distance. But let's go back to the three things that I mentioned before. So if I'm going you know, on a straight level surface, I've engaged the cruise control, start to go uphill. This Explorer has a 4-cylinder, 2.3 liter turbo for the engine, and it's 300 horsepower. So that's enough power. And it also has a 10-speed transmission. So as I start to go on an incline going uphill, it can very smoothly select a good gear and maintain whatever speed I have selected, you know, within reason, and keep going uphill. And that's great. And also when I'm going downhill, this maintains the speed very close to what I've set. It doesn't just take off and start coasting down the hill just because gravity and other forces are in its favor. It will actually, I think it applies the brakes actually in order to maintain the speed I've selected even as it's going downhill. So I know there's one highway that I often drive and the speed limit is 55 miles an hour. And it's rather steep going uphill and then downhill also 55 miles an hour. And I notice that the car stays at 55 even going downhill, but I can tell just from the way it feels that it's using the brakes to maintain that speed. And I don't like that. I think that, you know, if I did that every day, wear and tear on the brakes is going to add up, and so I'll probably, you know, again, disengage the cruise control, maybe select a lower gear or tap on the brakes a little bit and try and kind of manage that a little better than just allow this to ride the brakes downhill for, you know, 4 or 5 miles. I don't think that's good. Now, with certain new cars, if you've got a hybrid car or a fully electric car, what it will do on those cars is that it will actually utilize the motors on the wheels to kind of generate electricity that goes back into the electrical system of the car. So those motors, which are normally propelling the car, then become generators, and so it slows the car down because now you've taken the energy from the wheels. And maybe I'm not doing a perfect job of explaining this, but I do know people have told me if they have a hybrid car or a fully electric car, sometimes they don't really engage the brakes system when they're slowing down. And so, you know, you can go for longer than you would with a normal car, you know, traditional car, between having the brakes serviced or having new brake parts put on because of that regenerative feature to slow you down, you know, instead of engaging the brakes. But again, that's not what this is doing. This is not an electric car. It's not a hybrid car. And so I think, again, I've got to be careful. I don't want to wear out the brakes as cruise control is doing such a great job of maintaining a speed as I'm going downhill. I don't want to allow that to happen for too long and just, you know, wear out the brakes. So the third situation that I wanted to talk about, which is when you're in traffic, you've selected your speed on cruise control, and all of a sudden the traffic in front of you is slowed down. What do? Well, this, with its adaptive cruise control, will keep an eye on the traffic in front. It seems to me, I'm not sure exactly how the sensors work, but there's a camera up here. There's a bunch of stuff right in the middle top of the windshield, and there's a camera in there, and there may be another sensor in there. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but somehow it's monitoring the traffic in front of me to maintain the follow distance that I've selected. And there's a button on the steering wheel to adjust that. So if I want a shorter follow distance between this car and the car in front in the same lane, I can adjust that. I tend to want to keep it on the longer follow distance. So here's what happens. Say I'm on that Interstate 15 situation again. It's 70 miles per hour, and I'm driving along just fine, and all of a sudden I get into heavy traffic, and the traffic in front of me is slowing down. Maybe not too much, maybe it's only 65 miles an hour, maybe it's 60, maybe it's getting very, very slow. The car will sense what's in front of me and automatically slow down the cruise control and even engage the brakes if necessary to slow down and maintain that follow distance. So I tend to select a longer follow distance because that way it's a much smoother transition from a higher speed to a lower speed. If I picked a shorter follow distance, then I'd get very close to the cars in front and then suddenly slow down, because they're going too slow. So that's something adjustable, and you can get used to whatever fits for you. But I really like the smoothness of a long follow distance. And just in general, I'd rather have a long follow distance between this car and the car in front, just for general safety reasons. So I will see that happening, and sometimes it's so subtle that maybe I'm driving along 70 miles an hour, I got the cruise control engaged, I'm fine, and traffic in front of me is slowing down a little bit, and I don't really notice that I've slowed down in this vehicle until suddenly I'm down to like 55. I'm like, oh, kind of feels slow. Oh, it is slow because it's adapted to the traffic in front. So if you're not used to those kinds of features in the most up-to-date modern version of cruise control, I thought I would just kind of tell you that's what the car does. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but I think by now I like it. So we'll see how that is going forward. Now, a couple other things about this car that I'll talk about in a soon-to-be released video. I want to talk about this giant touchscreen that's on the new Explorer. Bigger than the touchscreen on the previous version of the Explorer, and you really get lots of apps, big touchscreen maps. I'm not even sure if it's really a good idea because it's so big and it's kind of a distraction, to tell you the truth. But I'm making sure that I don't allow it to impair my driving abilities. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about a few other features and functions of this car. But for now, it was just cruise control. I hope you'll join me soon because I'm going to put out more videos about this Ford Explorer, and let's see what this and other similar modern cars have to offer.